Awesome. Well, congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
JJ spoke last night at the premiere about, excuse me, fans and how they'll kind of take to it after The Last Jedi and how they take to it. But it's the sort of thing that you can't please everyone. You know, Game of Thrones, everyone has their idea of how it should end. Everyone has their own Batman and Superman and everything else. And he said he's hopeful that people are kind of going to this open-minded. Would you kind of echo that sentiment that people do that, whether they're fans or not fans?
Yeah, I'd say, yes, I'm ready to go on an adventure, I'd say, is part of it too. But I think the thing about Star Wars is that it's always really inspired people's imagination to such an incredible extent. That all started with George Lucas starting the whole thing in the middle, so that everybody thought about, well, what had happened and what were the other chapters? What happened before Episode 4? And because of that, I think people really have bring their own stories to these stories and feel particular ownership over where it should go or how it should play out. So, but this is our story of how we see it going, and I think it's a really fitting conclusion.
Where were you? Do you remember when you first saw Star Wars, and did you see it when it first came out? Because it was an event that nobody kind of saw coming. There was queues around the blocks, and repeated business in the 70s was not like that. Do you remember where you were and where you saw it, and what it was about it that kind of spoke to you?
Yeah, I went to see Return of the Jedi in the theater with my dad, and I think for me a lot of it had to do. I mean, I was so little, so I think it was just like the creatures and the sword fighting. But I think at the really deep down, it was so much about growing up and seeing your parents and who they are. And, I always remember seeing Darth Vader's helmet get taken off, and you see that he's just this like saddled fat guy underneath. And I was like, oh, that's, it's amazing when you're father figure that feels so imposing. You see that they're really just a human being.
Yeah. Have you enjoyed the fact that people have taken so much to Poe? Because initially, I presume I think this is true, that he was a kind of smaller part than he was in The Force Awakens, and when you came on board, you thought there was a chance to tell a great story. Because his arc is, over the course of the 3 films, is fascinating. He's had to deal with quite a lot in quite a quick succession.
It's true. I should have just let them kill him off in that first one, really. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But it's true. It's been interesting to see how he's been utilized in the different stories, because he's been a little bit of a wild card. Where does he fit in? How does he, help tell the story? So yeah, it's been fun to see how he's evolved, and now he's on the ground with his great new scarf and running around with his blaster. That's nice to be out of the X-Wing for a little while.
For sure. And obviously he has a relationship with Leia in this. And obviously there's some beautiful moments with Carrie in this movie. What's your kind of memory that you'll take away from working with her? Because she's such a such a great personality.
Yeah, well, I just, I loved how she just made no apologies for who she was and how she lived in the world, and was such, talk about being a rebel or resisting, she just was such a rebel and didn't have any patience for small talk or artifice or any of the pretensions. And it was so funny, had such an incredibly quick mind. And, I just remember laughing with her and dancing in between takes. Sometimes we would just randomly start humming and swaying together. And I just had a lot of affection for her.
I'll always love her in Harry Met Sally. She's so good in that film.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Absolute pleasure to talk to you, personally and work-wise. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey